Hi, Joe Bedogne here. I'm a realtor. In the next couple minutes, I'm going to share some tips and some advice on how to secure a down payment, especially when you're a first-time home buyer. Believe it or not, when I interact with my clients out in the field, that is the biggest objection I tend to get, is that they don't have money for a down payment. There's a few pieces of advice I'm going to give you in terms of trying to come up with that money. Now, many people have lots of different reasons why they can't secure that kind of money, and that's understandable. But regardless, the principles that I'm going to share with you apply to everybody's situation, regardless of where you are financially. To start, you need to have an end point. So you need to have an understanding of what the market is in your area. So my recommendation would be to reach out to myself or your local realtor if you're not in my area, and they can do, or I can do an assessment and give you an idea of what home prices are in today's market. Obviously, markets can change and markets can fluctuate, but they don't tend to fluctuate that much within 6 months to a year, barring any unforeseen negative circumstances. So once you have a target of what home values are, then you can determine whether or not you want to do 3% or 5% or 20%. Again, your mortgage broker will be able to advise on the type of down payment you're going to need. But the good rule of thumb is 20% will, first off, you'll have more equity built into the home with 20%. Secondly, you will be able to secure probably the best interest rate at 20%. And lastly, you will have the ability to avoid paying a mortgage insurance on your mortgage payment. So based on that information alone, you can have yourself a target of what you want to come up with. Once you have an established target, you can look at your individual budget, right? And when you look at your budget, you can determine how much money you can budget into savings per pay period or per month to go towards this down payment. And at first, if you have a $20,000 down payment or something of that nature, if you're buying a $100,000 home, and in today's 2022 market, obviously home prices tend to be a lot higher than that. So depending on what it is, you might be coming up with $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 if you're doing a 20% down payment. That seems like an overwhelming amount of money, but I can assure you, if you design your budget appropriately and just commit to putting X amount of dollars away every single pay period, every single month, believe it or not, you're going to see that money growing significantly. I'm not going to do a whole video on budgeting. But there are a lot of resources out there to learn how to budget. But essentially, you need to tell your money where to go, where it's going, and not where it's been. So as long as you write your budget and allocate where your money's going and have an allocation to go into your savings account every single pay period towards this down payment, you're going to apply a principle that I call the slight edge, which actually there's a book about that called The Slight Edge, and it gets into essentially the law of diminishing returns, where a little bit over a long period of time will add up. And applying that principle with sound budgeting, you should be able to come up with that money within a period of time, 6 months, a year, year and a half, whatever that is, depending on your individual situation. But, my recommendation is, if you want to buy a house and you need a down payment, start saving yesterday for that, right? You want to get that saved up as soon as possible. And once you have that money saved up and put aside, you then will be able to reach out to your realtor and begin the home buying process. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.